All right, episode
Mr.
episode number 32 of the Exclamation Mark podcast begins in 5, 4, 3.
Hello and welcome to the Exclamation Mark podcast, the only podcast that is not trapped in another castle. My name is Crofton Steers. I am one of the two hosts of this show. I welcome you, all the listeners, international, coast to coast, what have you. You're all welcome.
The one guy in Russia.
The one guy in Russia. And the other guy in Canada with me, the Wedge Antilles to my Luke Skywalker, if you will. Red 6.
Red
I'm
six
talking
to
about
Red Leader. Red 6 to Red Leader.
I'm talking about Bo Schwartz. Welcome, Bo.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? Thank you, Crofton, for the warm, awesome Star Wars intro. Man, I keep thinking about Star Wars, too. It's funny.
I didn't make you Porkins.
Is that bad?
Porkins?
I don't have a lot of Star Wars credits.
Oh, okay. Well,
in terms of my knowledge.
Let's just say he doesn't last long.
But I actually have a question. A small bit of conversation, unless you have something really pressing at the top of the show.
No, go ahead.
But you brought up Star Wars, and I was up late last night, writhing in bed, agonizing over this thought, which is...
It's good you ended with the thought.
The Force Awakens, and this is... If it's a mild spoiler, you may want to skip ahead a few minutes, but I'm not revealing anything. There's stormtroopers in The Force Awakens. They're all...
No spoiler.
They're all human, right? Why are there no alien races that are stormtroopers? I mean, it's never explained. I'm sure somewhere it's explained, but it's not explained in the movies. And I thought it was interesting that The Force Awakens, the new army, doesn't have, wouldn't they have expanded? Like, if you were building an army, why would you be that racist? It's racist. And they're the bad guys, so maybe they should be racist. But it feels like the galaxy doesn't really have... I don't know. It just feels like they'd take all kinds of believers as part of their ranks. But they're all freaking human, with some exceptions of people in high power. And the original 4, 5, 6, like the Star Wars A New Hope and all that, sort of makes sense because it's new and whatever. And this is a credit to the prequels, is that that question never comes up because all the bad guys are like the Trade Federation, those weird aliens that walk with their hands. There's all kinds of races represented as up to shenanigans in that, including the droid army. And the clone army makes sense because the most badass person in the world, Jango Fett, is the progenitor of the clone army. So he just happens to be human. But for some reason, the future of this universe is still just human stormtroopers. Anyways, I was up late last night just being like, man, what's some racist shit right there?
Yeah, well, you know what? That's a lot of thought for something that was probably conceived in the original trilogy as humans because A, it was cheap, and in the newer series, I think it's done because people have emotional attachments to the old stormtroopers in the way, so they've modernized them and they've made them different, but they want them to still kind of all look uniform and the same, you know?
What's the race of beings that Jabba the Hutt is?
Oh, jeez, dude, I don't know.
Let's find some, but his race, there isn't one of his kind who's like, I just want to be a stormtrooper, or gets kidnapped to be I'm this awesome.
That would be hilarious.
It's just he's wearing a Snuggie or something? It's just a blanket with holes for the arms and a helmet.
That would be awesome. I'm thinking now of all these Star Wars aliens, and if they were that was an extreme example, but there's a lot of them that would look ridiculous as stormtroopers. Aren't you a little small for a stormtrooper? Aren't you a little slug-sized for a stormtrooper?
Anyways, that's the end of that rant. Do with it what you will. Write into the show and tell us what you think about what I just said. If I'm stupid,
you know what? It'd be interesting. There's a book about how the New Order or whatever rose to prominence or something along those lines. I'm not sure if it would, clear up some of the details. It could be anything to do with sort of romanticizing the Empire and wanting to be as much like the Empire as possible. Maybe they just want everything to look like the golden age of the empire.
Yeah.
Probably they're racist.
Only humans.
That's right.
Screw other races in the galaxy. It says.
Speaking of only humans, the next segment of our show will only feature humans. It's where we talk about some of the news that grabbed us during the week in the world of video games. We call it readme.txt.
readme.txt.
What do you call that scream, Bo, at the end?
Oh, it's the Wilhelm scream.
Yeah, that's all over Star Wars, the Wilhelm scream. It's in episode 4, in A New Hope, I know, whenever the stormtroopers either get shot or fall down some hole, that plays.
Yeah, that's actually, and this is what I read, that Wilhelm scream is a joke between audio editors where, like people don't really notice it that much. And so people were sampling it and putting it in other movies, and the tradition just kept on. Like, it's in every movie, dude. If there's a scream in a movie, an audio engineer has snuck that in. Although now it's more of an archaic nod. I think more people know about it because of the internet. But predate the internet, and audio engineers are like, man, we're playing the world's biggest practical joke. We're putting this fucking same sound effect in every movie, and nobody notices. Fuck the audience!
Yeah, they are dirty bastards, those engineers.
I really appreciate the story behind that scream and wanted to work into the show, and we did.
So, Bo, in the world of video games, things are already ramping up. Like, we made it through the month of January here, and now a couple of big releases are starting. There's been a lot of games that are delayed every year. In 2015, there's a bunch delayed to 2016. I definitely associate 2014 with the year of everything being delayed to 2015. Like, 2014 had almost nothing. Everything got shipped to the next year. So, two of these games that came out to rave reviews this week were both tentatively scheduled for previous years and are now just releasing in February. That's The Witness, Jonathan Blow's The Witness, and XCOM 2. And by XCOM 2, we're talking about the sequel to
Jonathan
XCOM.
Blow is the developer of The Witness, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And XCOM 2 is the sequel to the remake XCOM Enemy Unknown, and not this. Sorry, what is it? XCOM Enemy Unknown, and not XCOM UFO Defense. The one that I played as a kid, there's also a sequel to that, I think, called XCOM 2. But this XCOM 2 is for the remake and is PC exclusive. Are you interested in either of those games, Bo?
I wasn't interested in The Witness, except it had a cool graphical style when I saw it in Steam. But I'm seeing a lot of people on Twitter, that I follow, like, oh my god, I love The Witness, it's so much fun. Come watch me play The Witness. So this has captured people's attention, and so I'm kind of curious about it now, but it still looks like a puzzle game, and I have a lot of games yet to play. I don't know if this is going to be a high priority for me.
See, what's funny is about The Witness is this guy. So this guy he's only released one other game, Braid, on Xbox Live Arcade. I think it came out on PC. I'm not sure. I played it on Xbox Live Arcade. So it was very well received. It was pretty much a one-man show. He took all the money that he made in that game, and he poured it into his next game, which is The Witness. But it's been quite a few years since Braid now, so he's really worked on this for a long time. And he was featured in Indie Game, the movie or whatever. And a lot of people have strong opinions about him, I guess him as a person or whatever. But you cannot fault how much love and passion he has for the industry. So he puts out this game, The Witness, and it's essentially a AAA puzzle game, which is I can't remember, Portal, I guess. What's that one? The something principle that was on
the Stanley Parable.
Well, maybe the Stanley Parable.
Talos Principle, I think.
That's it. Talos Principle. Yeah, I'm trying to think of other big name puzzle games that come out. It's not a well trodden downtrodden genre, and this game kind of looks. The Witness looks a bit like Myst to me. But IGN gave it 10 out of 10, and it doesn't give those.
Oh, really?
Doesn't give those too often. And so, yeah, it's totally piqued my interest as well. And just as like sort of a video game appreciator, like I love a good power fantasy as much as the next guy, but like I feel like this is something different, and that I owe it to myself to play it. It's $40, which is a lot less than most new AAA releases are.
But a lot more than indie games, right?
Yes, a lot more than indie games. Supposedly, it has a lot of content. And so it is interesting. It is in that weird space between those two. So I'm excited to try that game. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, you don't have something that's too different in the sense XCOM 2 is a strategic game. So it's a thinking man's game. You don't play XCOM to shoot dudes in the face, even though you do shoot dudes in the face. It's much more of like, I have 75% chance to make this shot. Fuck, I still missed it. God damn this game, uninstall.
It's a tactical turn-based shooter for those who like the methodical combat scenarios, and it's a management sim.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one is different because different in the sense that it presumes, which I think is funny, that you lost XCOM the first time.
I like it.
And that so now aliens have taken over the world, and you are in the resistance. And I was tentative about that because there was a sequel to the original XCOM. That was of similar. I forget, it was XCOM something or other. Anyway, it kind of sucked. And so I was a little worried that by getting away from the main tenets of XCOM, it was gonna be bad. But the reviews are really good, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm also excited about the fact it's PC only, because I feel that, not graphically, because I looked at the screenies, and it doesn't seem to be anything that the Xbox or the PlayStation can't do, but just like the potential for growth, maybe mods, different things. The fact that it's built from the ground up for PC is kind of cool.
Well, it's my opinion on it, and I don't know things, but like Skyrim has mods on PC, and then they developed a Xbox console version. I think the main issue is that at the top-down design, when you know you're heading to console, is that you've got to make the controls and interface work for both. And when you don't have to, if you just say it's a mouse and keyboard, best played with mouse and keyboard, that frees up, I think, like Civilization. I mean, God, who would play that on a console? It's designed for a mouse. Like, you know, it's best played that way. But if they had to consider controllers, they'd have to think about the way, not putting too many buttons in place, because they've got to map all that to a controller with like 9 buttons, you know, so...
But don't you think that if you have like they developed a pretty good system for the previous consoles, and like if you plug in your Xbox controller for the new one, don't you think it's going to work with the controller?
Well,
They'll probably have some sort of system.
Maybe. I assume it's going to be jank, though. It doesn't mean that you couldn't do a controller thing, but I think it's a different beast when you design with it in mind versus you add
That's
support
true.
in it for later. You know, there's like... Because it impacts the initial design, I would say. Like, when you're thinking about what are the buttons and what are the things people do, you've got to plan that early, and then it flavors everything, I think. Like, if that makes... That's just... I'm talking out of my ass, but...
No, it makes sense.
As a tactical turn-based game, there might be things it can do that controller limits. It's the kind of game that I'm like, I would never want to play with a controller just as a PC gamer. So, if most of their money was made on PC... because they have sales to reflect on the XCOM on the console version. If they're like, well, 10% of our sales were console, then why are we developing for console? Why? Let's just save us the trouble and not bother. Because you know.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It's funny. It segs pretty nicely into this next bit, which because I've been playing this Star Citizen Free Fly event.
I want to try that, yeah.
So it's going on now. So Star Citizen, we mentioned on the show before, Chris Roberts' Kickstarter, giant feature-filled, crazy space simulation game. So they've made their for the next 5 days or something. They have a free fly event where, like, if you haven't donated, you haven't paid any money or whatever, and you just want to try this and see what it is, you can go in and see what's there. And I've sort of been confused with Star Citizen because they've really, like, the communication surrounding it has been, transparent, but almost in a negative way, in the sense that they keep releasing things like features and stuff, and it's just, you end up being like unclear of what's actually in the game, because now it's like alpha 2.12, and I'm like, what does that mean? Like, what is in there? And so I downloaded, it was like 27 gig download or something like that. And then I started playing it. Also, I got my fancy new PCs. I wanted to see the nice graphics and stuff, and it looked nice. It's janky, which makes sense because it's an alpha. But one thing that I noticed was I hadn't played a PC game in a while that had been, like, designed for the PC, like designed. I mean, and so Bo was just talking about the controllers, and it's funny because it works perfectly with the Xbox 360 controller, and I was actually choosing often to use the Xbox controller when I was walking around, like, hangars and stuff, because you can use it or whatever, but like, when you play the way it's meant to be played is mouse keyboard, but the keyboard you're using like every single button imaginable, and I'm like, oh geez, because you have to go to this menu to see the key bindings, and I was like, oh, I wish I had like some sort of printout, because it's just, I would be like, okay, I got my craft lined up here we go, and then I'd hit a button. I'm like, okay, so I wanna go slightly faster. Let me hit this, and then I'd hit a button, and it'd be like landing gear disengaged or whatever, or engaged, and I'd be like, oh no, which button did that? And then I'd hit it again, and it would be like releasing flares, and I'm like, no, I don't want flares, and then I'd be like, I just want to put the landing gear up because I can't go fast, and then I'd hit another button, and then it would like pitch my whole ship 90 degrees or something like that, and I'm like, oh no, and then the computer would be like, hey, your trajectory is going to lead you into that space station. I'm like, I know, back up. It's like landing gear engaged. I'm like, no. So the whole thing was really complicated. It turns out I found out there's a tutorial hidden in there, and I managed to find it, and I was just doing it before we recorded the show, and trust me, it would have been really beneficial for me to have found it earlier. But it's clearly a game that benefits from being PC only, like in terms of every button imaginable they have on your keyboard. And if you were flying a spaceship, you'd probably use more than just 4 buttons, right?
That's the fantasy of the space sim, is that, like, ships have all these knobs and switches, and even airplanes do now. Like, flying is not just so. If that's your kind of thing, you do want the full range of the keyboard in your control scheme.
I will say, Bo, it did make me excited for a VR, because when you have, like, you tap Alt twice, you will go into free look mode, and then you can sort of look around your cockpit. And there's a lot of stuff, they take full advantage of that, and I thought was cool. But it will be really neat if you could just, like, be in free look mode all the time, which is what I'm assuming the new Valkyrie and Elite Dangerous and all that sort of stuff have already. But for me, I was just, because it's very, I was always alternating between free look, and they have this maneuver. Like, I was trying to learn how to fly, I really suck, but the mouse sensitivity, I think, was out of whack. I'll have to fix that. But it was really funny. There's if you hit caps lock when you're going, so say you're going real fast in one direction, if you hit caps lock, your ship will continue to go in that direction, but then you can pitch the whole thing and face the other direction while your ship is still flying.
Oh, that is awesome. I get what you mean. You're talking about like some Fast and Furious move. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
so
you're 180, but you're reversing at the same speed.
But now you can't see what's going. Like, you have to know what's in front of you, because now you're facing the other. So there's a guy on your ass.
It sounds like a dogfighting move, basically.
Yes, yeah, for sure. But anyway, they teach you it in the tutorial or whatever. Of course, I crashed into an asteroid.
Yeah, no
It's
offense, Crofton, but I think you're gonna spend a long time sucking at that game if you
no,
still.
for sure I will. I think like I actually have a joystick, like flight stick type thing. I think I dust it off for this because it's just not like for me. It's just not worth it right now. Maybe I'll
You
talk
still
about
have
it a
to
little.
learn how to use your flight stick.
Yeah,
The
but
flight stick will
honestly,
make it better. How does this work?
yeah, I just the natural pitch and whatever. And for a flight stick, for me, like that's again the VR element
Yeah.
of having that headset, and then like because your character on screen is holding a flight stick or whatever. So
Are the touches nice? Like the animations for that POV that you've seen? I know I think you flip your helmet before you put it on when you get in the cockpit.
I didn't notice that. I did notice that there was a lot of little touches that were really cool. There's so the areas. I'll just talk about what's available on the free or in the mode that I played. Is it so they've got a hangar, which I think was their first thing that was released, and it's like it literally is this empty hangar, and you can walk around it, and any ships you bought or this free ship when you're cheap like me. Is available, and you can go and sit in the cockpit. You literally cannot take off. You just can sit in the cockpit and be like, oh, this is what the cockpit looks like. I guess it's good for inspecting your ship if you bought a ship or whatever. So the hangar is pretty much boring.
So what do they give you? Like a trash can with a rocket on it because you don't own anything?
No,
Like,
no, I don't know what it was like because I ended up having the choice. I'm not sure what the name of the ship was in my hangar. Maybe it was a Hornet something class. There's a lot of ships, I think. But what I did end up doing was I left the hangar, and there's like an elevator, and then you can punch in like codes to teleport to like two hub areas, if you will. One of them is just like what I imagine a cityscape on a planet is. It looks like a more futuristic version of Blade Runner. There was a zillion other players were there. It was really funny because they all looked the same. Like they all have the same face or model. So it was like, I was like being in some weird clone world with like everybody's your clone. But it was fun to walk around. There was enough, like it was a big enough area. There was a bunch of stores. You couldn't really do anything in the stores, obviously, but you could go in and see sort of how it was set up. And it did remind me a lot of games like from Chris Roberts, like Privateer or Wing Commander. Privateer in particular, where you'd be on a planet and you would choose to go to different stores or whatever, and there'd be a little graphic in the background, and then you would navigate through the menu. Like it's total overkill for what you're actually going to do in these stores. Like you walk into a store and you're just going to sell your scrap there,
yeah.
but they have like all this animation and crazy shit going on. And so that's one place, this planet, this Coruscant type planet. The other place was a space station. And that space station is interesting because there's all these like hibernating rest pods. You start in one, and then you can go and you can order a ship. And I had a choice of 3, and then it's put on one of the landing pads. You can go out, you can get in it, and you can fly around. That's where I first learned that I didn't know how to fly because I hadn't done any of the tutorial shit. The tutorial stuff is located in the menu. You have to go, and there was this dogfighting module that was released at one point, and it's all supposed to be like a sim, but I didn't even do any fighting against other players. Man, I can barely keep the ship in the air myself. So I just did the tutorial, and I was learning to fight against this drone, and there's this guy it was the most cinematic thing. He's like, get in, follow my moves, and taking off was a huge bitch. I almost crashed taking off. And but then you're in the air, and it's fun. I haven't played Elite, and I haven't played one of these games for a long time, like since Freelancer or something. So I like them, but I don't have a lot of recent comparables. I do know I'm going to have to fool with a lot of the sensitivity because I was just hopeless out there.
And you can even probably set your key bindings. I know that's sometimes a place I spend a lot of time, like an Elite Dangerous, where I'm like, I don't know if I like this button for this thing. And
the things you need to know
2 hours goes by with you fiddling with it.
you need to know all the things first, though, right? Like, I don't even know what I can do. Like, that whole caps lock to go backwards while
Yeah.
going forward thing, like, I didn't know anything about that. And there's a bunch of others, like, there's a bunch of other things. And so, I mean, I'm probably gonna tinker with it a bit more. But at the same point, like, I am a little disappointed with their approach of just releasing these, like, little trinkets. Um, I just want them to release a game. I don't know. Even if they release it in three parts, say like this is the first third of the game, this is the second third, this is the third third. That Squadron 42 thing, which is their campaign, supposed to come out soon. Anyway, I'm just tired of. I'm excited for it. It's fun. It gets me into it, but at the same time, I'm like, this is nothing. I'm not going to be here that long. I can tinker with some stuff. It's an alpha. Then I'll move on to some other game. And if you don't release ever, then I'm going to lose interest and I'll come back.
Yeah. Well, that's the danger of what they're doing there. But I think that game is going to be forever in development. Hopefully, they release Squadron 42. Eventually, that's a fighter game. They have more limited scope in terms of what they're developing for the free world. And so I think that all that stuff's going to get released piecemeal over its life cycle, if I'm being honest.
This is a funny story I just thought of. So there's this game on Kickstarter called Ant Simulator. Okay, and it was funny because I remember when I was a kid there was a Maxis game, Sim Ant or whatever.
Sim Ant was awesome.
Yeah, I never played it, but it looked awesome. Anyway, this guy was like the spiritual successor, so he wanted to make this thing called Ant Simulation. This is where it gets hilarious. So he then, like, I guess hired a couple of his buddies to work on this game with him. He raised a lot of money on Kickstarter. And he tried his best, like, to put this game out, but his buddies spent all the money on booze and hookers.
Oh, God.
Or no, booze and dance strippers.
Wait,
yeah.
I'm looking up because I have to know a little bit more. I just found an article about it on Forbes.
Booze and strippers. Yeah. So he said. So anyway, the guy who did the Kickstarter now had to tell all the backers that I'm sorry, I got no money and this is canceled because my meathead friend spent it on strippers and booze. So it was funny because I read this article, and in the comments below of the article, like, there was this guy who had used the handle Chris Roberts, and his comment was, so what you're saying is you can just apologize and and leave with all the money and nobody will ask questions? Interesting, or whatever. And I laughed out loud at that. I was like, oh, Star Citizen, you'll never be released.
I love those, like, because you see them on there sometimes, like, I saw one, Jon Snow was on there, and so it had nothing to do, the video with Jon Snow from Game of Thrones, but someone had referenced him, and then an account named Jon Snow with Jon Snow's picture like showed up and responded. Like,
he knows nothing. You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I just think it's funny that's out there. That's a thing on comment section that I find is a positive force in commenting.
People are being clever. No, for sure it's true. Anyway, so Star Citizen free fly events going on now. You can check that out. The other event that was going on was the Division went into beta. Supposedly it was extended a day due to popular demand. I actually, of all the games we've mentioned, aside from Star Citizen, The Witness and XCOM, The Division is the one that I've kind of been the most excited about, just because the first trailers I saw of that game, just, the post-apocalyptic setting, the graphics, the world, it looks so wicked, but my enthusiasm is being tempered by delay after delay, and so now I'm not as keen on it anymore, although I will probably check it out, especially the reviews when it comes out, and see if it's worth jumping into. But people seem to be into the beta, so that's a good sign. Like, if there was, due to popular demand, it was extended, then I feel like that means the game is probably half decent. Anyway,
it was pretty heavily watched on Twitch for a while. So,
did you see any of it?
Yeah, it looked boring.
Are you sure?
It's about like 2 seconds, and I'm like, meh.
I don't know, man. It seems like a game we could play together. It looks like fun. Like you go around as a team and stuff. You're exploring these dilapidated New York. I don't know.
I think at a certain point, like they're gonna have to get me with the trial. I don't. It's not a game. Wasn't that at E3 when we talked about what they were showing at E3? They showed some of the Division, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they have drops too. Like there's legendary gear, or there's gear and stuff that I could see hooking you. Meanwhile, the immersiveness looks like it might hook me. I just see it as kind of like a best of both worlds type situation.
To me, it's a game I'm gonna want to get a taste of before I put down whatever money they're asking for this game, because it'll cost a mint when it's released.
Oh yeah, it'll cost
With all the other
Canadian.
stuff coming, I think it's a pass for me for now. But it could be, my mind could be swayed. I miss our PlanetSide 2 days, bud.
Well, now I have a PC. I can run it pretty well. What's a game that you would be willing to buy day one, Bo?
Well, I think it's going to be free to play, so I don't have to buy it. But Paragon open beta sign up started, I think, last week, like a few days ago.
Remind me what that one is.
This is the Unreal MOBA. So Unreal, makers of Gears of War,
Oh,
Unreal
yes,
Tournament,
yes.
have released. They released a trailer, and now beta sign up started for Paragon, of which I signed up. And I actually got an email today. I didn't get in. I've seen tweets about people getting in, but they sent me an email saying fill out this survey and you'll get for a chance to get into the beta. So I'm gonna have to fill that out. Wait, what? Thank you for
What?
Okay, so I got this email today. Oh, correct dates. Yeah, I have to fill out the survey by February 3rd. They sent an incorrect email today telling me to fill out the survey by January 27th, and it's like, well, dude. Anyways, that's not that interesting, but I'll be filling it out because I do a show about MOBAs, and so I feel like when something interesting in the MOBA front comes up, it's useful to explore, but also it's Unreal doing, with Unreal pedigree, doing Unreal things. And first-person shooters are not unique. I know Gearbox is coming up with Battleborn, but the Gearbox pedigree versus the Unreal pedigree, it's just no contest. So I'm interested in what this is going to be.
Does I guess they have non-disclosure, right? Like, so we don't even know the people who did get in. We don't know what they think of it yet, or anything like that.
I think it might. I mean, it's not clear. I imagine it's NDA right now, but I think if it wasn't NDA, we'd be seeing it on Twitch. Which
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about? So you can't get that. Well, is there any game that's coming out recently that you would get?
Oh, Darkest Dungeon is on its way, or it's actually in full release. This game was in early access for a long time. Talked
You
about it on the
recommended it.
show. It was a recommendation.
Of Bose.
This is an unforgiving roguelike game that's also kind of reminiscent of the 4-player Dungeon Keeper. Not Dungeon Keeper. What's the classic game? Those first-person blocky, like Eye of the Beholder and the old SSI.
Oh yeah. I like those games.
There's a Dungeon Master, I think, is actually what it might have been called, like that old Amiga.
No, Eye of the Beholder's the one I remember, and there was Ultima Underworld and all those, and
yeah, but it's not first person. It's like 2D graphics, kind of cell shaded, really nice artistry. And I've talked about it at length. Your guys go insane if they're like Cthulhu type monsters and things like that. Really very good, really very unforgiving, not heavy on the narrative, but there is a narrator that narrates the things that are happening in the game, and that voice actor is incredible. So
cool, like Bastion.
Yeah, and in a true indie game fashion, right now it's $21. It's been on sale before. Will probably be on sale again if it's not a full price buy for you. It's a really great game. It's in full release. There's this new hero out, or one of the new types of types of characters you can pick, I guess character class, which is the what is he called? Basically, he gains power by going insane. An abomination, that's what he is. And like
you'd be an abomination. That'd be your class.
That'd be my class. Like he's in chains and rags.
Yeah,
and like,
I'd be a rogue.
And like there's no rogues. You probably there's highwaymen.
I'd be that.
There's nothing traditional about this. One of the warrior classes is a leper.
That'd be Mike.
But there's also Grave Robber and there's Well, maybe you'd like the Highwaymen better.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no rogues in this, but they're roguelike, but nothing is called fighter, wizard. Like,
I love roguelikes.
the wizard classes I think are called occultist and witch doctor, and the clerics are like Vestral. Like, everything's got that sort of swanky old English feel to it and pretension. Anyways, it's out. Pick it up, buy it, watch the trailer. It's good. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up the news of the week. Let us move quickly into the games we are actually playing in games per minute. Bo?
You're always talking about making kids' minds like vegetables. Talk about them out on the street smoking pot.
This is Games Per Minute.
How do you feel about cutting his head off? One.
Awesome. I always feel awesome about cutting heads off. If only I knew of a good game in which you can cut off people's heads. Bo, are you playing a game like that?
A game that I could cut off people's heads?
Yes.
You can't really cut off anyone's heads in Diablo 3.
I was thinking of Diablo 3 when I said it, though.
I know, but there's no real head-severing decapitation mechanic. But
See, that's why.
they do, like, turn a lot of monsters into mush. A lot of great ragdoll effects. You get especially good feeling when the ragdoll hits the screen, like it actually flies so hard it like just hits the monitor. It's pretty cool.
Sweet.
But yeah, not much to say here. I mean, we've talked about Diablo before, that game that's been out forever that constantly puzzles Crofton as to why I keep playing it.
Are you playing it again?
Yeah, Season 5 is out, and there's new items, there's new set dungeons, new features.
Do you have to pay money for that?
No, it's an always online game, but you buy the box and the expansion.
Those are the only two purchases, and then when there's a new season, you automatically get it?
Yeah, there's no other microtrans or anything like that. And so Season 5 comes out, and I rolled a monk and just had a lot of fun. And so I sort of binged on that for a few days, as is the Diablo way. There's now 14 levels of difficulty, so Torment 10 being the highest. I have Torment 10 on farm, so I can just do that content and get gear. And I've gotten as high as like Greater Rift level 60, which is about 15 notches above the highest difficulty level. And right now on the leaderboard, the highest is 81. I don't think I'm going for the leaderboard, but that's the gameplay, is to just try and do harder and harder and harder.
At that level, do you just die with one shot?
Pretty much. So you've got to really be tactical about some of your defensive cooldowns, like special abilities, and the types of gear you pick. So I could get really detailed about how I'm doing it, although if you're a Diablo player, you probably know what I mean when I'm saying I'm using like an Innis Temperance set for my monk. It's probably pretty standard stuff with all kinds of mystic allies. And the Desert Shroud rune in Epiphany. By the way, a monk has an ability called Epiphany. It's just the coolest ability name ever, because it's like you push a button and you have a great idea. You have a great realization about the truth of the world.
Oh man, I think I'd be curious, like, to see a chart of all the games that Bo has played in his life and the amount of times that he's played each game, because I feel like Diablo 3 may be the top all time. Like,
I think it might be too, actually.
Like, I was thinking about it, like, because I mean, if it's not that, it's another Blizzard game. But like, I know you've put in the mileage on Diablo 3.
It's a game that keeps on giving every season.
So is that all you've been playing?
No, I also tried out this game called Fractured Space. It is like Star Citizen, a space game, but it's actually third-person view of a ship, and it's a MOBA. Sounds
Another
weird.
MOBA. I've never heard of this one.
But it's still in development, early access. But it was a free weekend, and because I played on the free weekend, I own it now. So if you didn't play on the free weekend, you have to buy in to play it. But I get to play it in perpetuity, because the long-term goal is that it's a free-to-play game with microtransactions.
Huh.
So
good, bad?
It's all right. Like, a lot of potential here. I didn't really play PvP. I just got through the training mission, but I wanted to make sure I owned it because it's interesting. Basically, you play like a heavy capital ship. It's not like Dogfighters. It's like you have like 18 billion guns.
You play like Battlestar Galactica. You are Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, but the ships are janky. They're they're not sleek and like, you know, certain designs might be like, oh, these are fast, crazy ships, or like Mass Effect ships look alien. These
Yeah,
look
but the Battlestar Galactica example still stands because it was like going into a museum. I'm a nerd. It was going into a museum, but they put it out into anyway. It's an old piece of
okay. Like the Battlestar Galactica, not so much maybe like the Cylon technology, but it's fun. Like you fire, you know, you have these missiles, you have all these abilities on your ability bar, same as MOBAs. It's like EVE Online without all the spreadsheet and knowledge you have to do to experience the upper echelons of what that experience is. It's like a 20-minute game. You can log in, pick a ship, go. Even Star Citizen, you have to learn how to fly it and all this crap.
Oh yeah,
this is very easy. That whole freedom of space movement is not an issue because you just sort of fly flat and you can move up or down, but you still feel like your orientation in space is like regular. And the focus is on firing missiles at enemy capital ships. And when those ships shoot you, you know, activating your point defense to shoot the rockets out of the sky. And there are different ship types, so faster, more damaging ships versus slower, tankier ships. So it has like a MOBA sensibility, but it's it's really unique. And so I really like this. Also, because of the way gaming is, I don't have to invest 80 hours in learning Elite Dangerous before I can do anything that is awesome. So.
I bet you Chris Roberts will see it and be like, that made a good new feature, capital ships, eh? Good new feature for Star Citizen. Let's delay it for 3 more years and work on it. Sure. God damn you, Roberts.
Anyways, that's Fractured Space. I played Heroes of the Storm, obviously, as same old there. Want my thoughts on it on Core, the Heroes of the Storm show we're doing. We are doing Core Concepts, which is a strategy section, so you should check it out if you're interested.
Cool.
I'm not going to spend so much time here. The last thing is, I discovered a brand new television show on the Sci-Fi Network. It's called The Expanse.
Oh, I think I heard of the show.
It is good. It's only like 8 episodes in, but it is really good. It's got Thomas Jane as a detective on a space station, the Ceres space station. And he's a belter. He was born and raised in space stations. And like it's this cool sort of hard sci-fi that is flavors of Mass Effect as a TV show, but it's not it's based on books. It's not a copy of Mass Effect. It's its own unique universe.
It's not based on books?
It is based on books. Like these are books. There's like I think 5 or 6. So you know this is another sci-fi Game of Thrones deal, except nothing like Game of Thrones, but it is like hard sci-fi where it's like you have Earth ruled by the UN, and Earth has control of the outer stations like Ceres and the Kuiper Belt. I don't know. Like there's all kinds of space stations out there that mine things and bring it back to Earth, but also the mining provides resources for the stations like water. Water is more precious than gold on a space station. Then there's Mars, who've disassociated themselves from Earth, and they're like this big military power. But they still haven't terraformed Mars. It's like all domes and shit on Mars, but they like hate Earthlings, and they're trying to fight for control over the resources in the belt. And meanwhile, Belters are kind of like the Irish of space. Like they're not Irish, but like they have their own lingo, their own culture. It's really, really freaking good. And so
how are the special effects?
They're decent, actually. I would say the one weird thing, and I hate when shows do this, is that they use a lot of contemporary music, which what else are they going to do? But I always hate hearing weird songs from like like current music, like a little bit too much of that, but it's forgivable. The special effects are good for a television show, but there's no aliens or any shit like that. It's all just spaceships.
Yeah, but space is tough.
A lot of great cameos from big actors in it too. Like I said, Thomas Jane's really awesome, but they got an actor from Mad Men who plays one of the Belter guys, and Mike Ehrmantraut, Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad, has a cameo in it. Like, there's a lot of people that pop up in the show, and it's super good. It is super good. I haven't been this stoked about a sci-fi series since Battlestar Galactica. I think it's going to be better, probably, in the long run than Battlestar Galactica even. So,
cool.
Really good.
Where can you watch it?
On Sci-Fi. I think it's airing on Sci-Fi, so that's where you have to get it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. I don't have TV, so I could never watch it.
Well, at some point, I'm sure it'll be on streaming, or you probably can get it on iTunes. There are places in the world to find this kind of content. It's really good.
I think he's nudge, nudge, wink, winking at the audience. Okay, so back to video games. So I mentioned Star Citizen Alpha, blah, blah, blah. I played it. I'm going to probably have more impressions of it in the future.
Sure.
Speaking of sort of alpha type stuff, even though it wasn't an alpha, Metal Gear Online, which is the sort of, other than that base capture thing in Metal Gear Solid The Phantom Pain, there's also a whole, like, you access it from a different menu type thing to go into Metal Gear Online. It was released later, and it's much more of like a traditional kind of death match with Metal Gear elements. I played a bit of that. It was fun. Like, I always judge those things based on how quick I die, because like if I started up playing Call of Duty right now, I would just get fucking destroyed to the point that I would rage quit. I know I would. Whereas Metal Gear Online, I was actually killing dudes, and I felt like I was obviously getting smoked a lot more than I was beating people, but at the same point I didn't feel like I couldn't do anything.
Right.
And the gameplay, you were playing in areas that you know maybe from the single player game, so I already had a certain knowledge of maps and all that, which is obviously beneficial, and of game mechanics. So I had a kind of good time. I see it's gotten kind of bad press. I mean, it's not as good as the main game. What do you want? I haven't spent that much time on it, so I guess that's telling. What I have spent a lot of time, or some time on, is the Order 1866. But were you familiar with this?
I remember a lot of hype surrounding it. It's sort of a steampunky, very visual game. That it was notoriously short. I know I was interested in it, but as someone who doesn't own a console, I guess it passed me by. But sounds like you've stopped by to check out its wares.
Well, here's the thing. You're right. Everything you said is more or less true. It came out last January, so January 2015.
Oh wow, yeah, that is a while ago.
It's a while ago, but a year is sort of a good time to step back and take a look at. Might have been beginning of February. It might have been right about now. Anyway. It's a year after a release of a game is a good time to step back, take a look at it, and be like, okay, how did this go? Like, how was this received? Was it received fairly? How does it look after a year in the rear view? Now, I'm only playing it now, and I got it for $10, which is not much money, incidentally.
That's nothing.
I bought it on sale on the PlayStation Network over the Christmas break. It was a bunch of games. And so the two things people will tell you about the Order 1866 is, one, it has nice graphics, and two, that it's very short. Those are the two things that everybody says in the reviews. They'll be like, we have to tell you the graphics are really nice and that it is short. So I don't know what I expected from playing the game, but I expected it to be like, there's a lot of 6 on 10s, like even some lower. There was the occasional higher, but I didn't really have that high expectations. Needless to say, I have been very pleasantly surprised. The game has nice graphics is a grand understatement, in the sense that it has nicer graphics. Like, I played Star Citizen on high graphics, and then I'm playing the Order 1866. Now, it's not a fair comparison, okay? It's not a fair, for many reasons. One is a giant open world space game. The other is a tightly scripted action game with less assets and all that sort of stuff. But man, it looks better than I don't think I've ever seen a better graphics in a video game. Like, and it's like, I have a good computer. I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 5, which was in Game of the Year contention last year, on pumped up graphics on my computer, PC version. And next to the Order, it looks like ass. Like, I mean, like, the Order is ridiculously good graphics. So there is that to say. It does have nice graphics, crazy good. And two, the production values are insane. Like everything from the animation to the voice acting to the sound editing to the script to all of it is even the creative behind it is super impressive. Like, now I haven't finished the game, which is funny, because like everybody's like, oh, it's so short. I'm like, I have yet to finish the game. Now, I've only played it. I played it 3 times, but each time I sat down for like almost 2 hours or whatever. Well, longer than I mean to, and I've gone ahead on the internet and searched like number of chapters in the order 1866 just to see like maybe I'm near the end or whatever. But no, I'm still like, there's 16 chapters and I'm on chapter 9 or whatever. And some of them are really short, whatever. Some of them are super long or longer. So it's not that short. Honestly, like, I mean, it's short, I'm sure, like compared to Metal Gear Solid 5 or The Witcher 3. Yeah, okay, fine, it's short. But like, I keep thinking, Bo, when I'm playing this game, of 2 games, Gears of War and The Last of Us. And I think of Gears of War, and both of those games got amazing reviews when they came out. And Gears of War in particular it came out near the beginning of the Xbox 360's life cycle. It sold itself really on graphics. Like, these were crazy graphics at the time. I remember playing Gears for the first time being like, holy shit. And it was a cover-based shooter. And it introduced, like, there was the active reload and there was a bunch of other mechanics. It really pushed that forward. But, like, it was not a long game. Like, it was not that long. Like, you play the campaign, like, people could come over, you could play the campaign in, like, 2 or 3 sittings. You know, it's like, it wasn't that long. And the next Gears were longer. Like, do you remember Gears being a long campaign?
No, it wasn't long. But, like... No. It felt a little bit like the encounters in it, like part of the way that gameplay worked out is that if you took your time with the game, it sort of stretched it out. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly as well, and also how often you died. Now, the first thing I did when I played the Order 1866 was I cranked the difficulty to hard, because there's certain games you want to play on hard, and there's certain games you want to play on lower difficulties. And I knew this game was supposed to be short. I wanted it to last. I'm like, I'm probably only going to play it once. Might as well play it on hard. That was a good choice because it's not even that hard. Like, it's not that difficult at all. But I die like so and it would have been really a cakewalk, I think, on less than hard. So the graphics and the story are so, because like compared to Gears, the Order has a way better story, way better script, way better characters, all that sort of stuff. The Order it's much more of an adult professional game. The fact that it exists and people are just fixating on the game length when everything about this game screams quality is ridiculous. Now, okay, the cover gameplay mechanic is played out a bit, and their innovations, if you will, are like you build up a meter, and if you hit a button at one point, your guy will go into like Wild West mode with his pistol and like bullet time, and he can shoot like 4 guys pretty quickly. And all the knights of the Round Table, of which you're one, have drunk of the Holy Grail, and their blood they drink. They have these little vials around their neck of black blood, and so when you get taken down, you know how in Gears, like, you drag yourself along the ground. Well, the same is true here. Like, you're dragging yourself along the ground, and then they give you maybe 5 long seconds of like where you can't res yourself, and at that point, if an enemy shoots you while you're dragging yourself on the ground, you will be dead. Okay. But so you sort of like get into cover, and then it'll prompt you to drink from this vial, and then once you drink from it, you have to tap the X button, and then your guy gets up, and then you immediately want to get back into cover. So that's the other sort of, aside from the regular cover shooting, it's like they've got the Wild West thing, and they've got the sort of res thing, but aside from that, it's a plain vanilla shooter, right. Third-person cover shooter. But it's good. Like, every environment is super well crafted. Like, again, I don't want to harp on the graphics over and over, but the sense of immersion, like, you don't need to build a full open world. Like, Assassin's Creed Syndicate came out in Victorian London last year. I haven't played that yet, but I mean, like, yes, you're going to create a certain atmosphere because your guy can go anywhere. But, like, nobody in Victorian London were scaling up the side of a building and running around the roofs and swinging on things. Like, you're not going to feel like you're in Victorian London. And this game has a bunch of things like supernatural elements, werewolves, vampires. Nikola Tesla's designing your weaponry. It's all ridiculous, crazy shit. it
Sounds cool.
so-
Sounds cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It is cool for sure. But like your guy is not like he can do stuff like there's some athletic things that he does, but for the most part, a lot is scripted. It's about an experience, and in that way, The Last of Us jumps to mind. Where in The Last of Us, the intro to that game, the prologue, before you get into the main game in particular, is super tightly scripted. Like you can't do shit. You pretty much are going through the motions. You got to do, quick time event here to break the glass of the car to get out of it. You pick up your daughter. You got to walk here, but you can't. They're putting you on a course in The Last of Us in the intro, but it's super emotionally powerful and it ends really powerfully. And there is something to be said for those experiences. And the Order 1866 has a lot of those like tightly scripted moments, and I understand that video game purists would be upset by that because they would be like, "Well, I don't have control. I can't do everything here." But like in Telltale games, essentially you make choices, but you don't have much control. This is one of those situations again, sometimes, and then other times you're in shootouts where you have a lot of control. So I mean, I feel like this game really got short shaft, and I haven't finished short shift rather, and I haven't finished the game, so it could turn to shit at the end. Totally possible. Okay. But everything so far to me is like, this is a good game, and I feel badly that people think of it now like, oh, that's the short game. That's the kind of that short game, right? Like that's what it's known for, and it's not even that short. Like I thought I would be done by now, So it's kind of like. It's the Game Press really went to town on this game, and I feel bad for it.
The Game Press and also just the YouTube generation, because some people play those games and they just zip through them. Like there are different types of game players when it comes to these narrative experiences, especially where if that game doesn't offer replayability in the form of some kind of content, they like zip through it and they're done. It's so short.
Well, what's funny about that, Bo, is that I understand that because there's very little in terms of collectibles as well in this game, but when I was when the original Xbox came out, I got this game called Dead to Rights. It was an Xbox exclusive. You play this cop. He's got a dog. And pretty much it's an action movie, and that it had a kind of at the time what I thought was a good story compared to The Order. It's garbage, right. but it was corruption, and the cops got to go and take down all these guys, and there's a lot of gameplay, and there's a lot of the shooting mechanics were Max Payne inspired. Bullet time, you could send your dog for instant kills or pick up weapons. They even remade it or made a version of it on Xbox 360, I think. But that to me, that game at the time when I played it, I wanted a game to rent for the weekend. Like my wife was in Boston at the time. I just was like, I want a game I'm going to play this weekend and have fun doing it. And that was that game. And for me, The Order 1866 is the spirit of that game, the type of game that you can be like, I have Friday and Saturday night free this weekend. I want to play a game. Yes, it's not going to be hundreds and hundreds of hours. I'm losing interest in Metal Gear Solid 5. It's petering its way out. Yeah. And yeah, maybe you don't want to spend $70 on The Order 1866. Maybe you wait till it's on sale. But honest to God, the way people have treated this game, I feel sad because I know it's not going to get I think it's unlikely to get a sequel. And I feel like it has all the makings of when you look at Gears 1 and then you look at Gears 2 and Gears 3, when they introduce Horde mode, they introduce all these crazy things. What is there in Gears 1? There's nothing. You can play the campaign on Insane and collect dog tags, and I think there was some small deathmatch multiplayer mode, but there's really nothing compared to the sequels that build on them. And the Order's never going to get that chance, I don't think so.
Well, that's unfortunate, but at the same... Yeah, it's sad to hear.
It's just funny because before playing, I was always tempted because it is one of those like sort of male power fantasies where you're like this big alpha male, like Gears of War or whatever. And I'm always tempted to those sort of that escapism entertainment. And there was the sci-fi and the Victorian element. All of that was appealing. So when the reviews came out and they weren't great, I was like, oh well, I'll wait till it goes on sale. But I kept checking the sale prices, so I knew I had an acute interest. But I expected to be disappointed when I started it up, and I really have not been, and it's been really involving. And it's not, there are flaws with the game, and if you look at games that emulate movies, this is one that's clearly emulating movies too much. Like, it's too much of a cinematic experience, and therefore the gameplay side of the coin is kind of shortchanged. But I mean, I think every once in a while a game is worth it, for even if it's unbalanced in that way. Something that's too gamey can be good. Something that's too cinematic can be good. And I think this one is like, when I'm playing this game, sometimes graphically, and I don't want to gush over the graphics too much. When I'm playing it, sometimes it's like I think about these cutscenes in games like Final Fantasy X that I would play the game, and every once in a while there would be a cutscene. And I remember going over to our friend Mike's place, and like he would have these cutscenes saved, and he's like, check out the graphics, man, in these cutscenes. And all they were was like pre-rendered sequences, right? Like, it's like going to see Toy Story or something. I mean, it's a pre-rendered video, but like, you're watching these cutscenes in the order, and you're like, holy shit, these are amazing graphics. And then it just suddenly you're like, wait, I can control the dude now, because they always keep it letterboxed at all times, so you never really know when the cutscene's over. Actually, the letterboxing's kind of annoying, but then you're walking around and you're like, holy crap, it's like I'm controlling a CG cutscene. I mean, it's crazy. So like, graphically, it's just out of this world.
So does it get a recommend from you at all for people at $10?
Well, the thing is, yes, it does, as at sale price, but I haven't finished the game yet, and before I make it my recommend of the show, I want to finish it first. So
all right, well, let's keep the conversation going, and because we can streamline this right into this week's Dialgoue Tree.
Sweet.
You groovy?
Yes.
Oh, you dig. Now there's one fine Dialgoue Tree. Yeah, it's a fine Dialgoue Tree with some fine ash bark.
See, I pre-selected this week's topic based on the order, honestly. Like, because I started thinking to myself, I was like, geez, what is the point where, and this is a conversation a lot of people had before, what is the point where length is a deal breaker? It's like, how little is too little, and consequently, how much is too much?
This sounds like a conversation.
No jokes.
It sounds like a conversation for the That's What She Said podcast. You know that podcast?
I literally put that in the show notes. I said no penis jokes.
I couldn't help it.
You son of a bitch.
Because I didn't say That's What She Said. That's What She Said podcast.
That's true. You did it in as clever a way as I can give you.
Yeah.
So so like, I guess, and I showed my hand a little bit where I'm sort of like losing interest in Metal Gear Solid, and I know that there's still tons of content, tons of stuff to explore, and I'm just am losing interest in it. And then meanwhile, the Order I'm super into, and I know it's going to end, and I'm still going to be into it and be like, oh, I wish there was more Order, So like,
I have a few games in the front of my mind. Go. So I got to talk about two. So I'm going to talk about one, but don't stop me until I talk about both. Full price game, like $60-$70. I think it was like Call of Duty 2 Modern Warfare way back. That campaign was like 10 hours. I was pissed. I didn't walk into it kind of like, I think I had played some of the original Call of Duties, and those had like what felt like a reasonable amount of campaign in it. Maybe my memory was off. I still feel like that's the case. But Modern Warfare 2 was literally like 8 hours. Like I played it in the evening. I was done. I had no reason to play it again. I was like, what is this game? And it took me a little while to realize just how invested in multiplayer they were. And this is old news now. But at the time, $80 for that shit? Mad. So mad. Now...
It wouldn't have been $80 for Modern Warfare 2.
60 to 70, like whatever the full price tag was at that time.
$60
given
maybe.
the adjusted dollar value and current prices with inflation, it'd probably be an $80 title. The other one that was short but awesome was the Banner Saga, which I've recommended on this show. And it wasn't short, but it was way shorter than I wanted it to be. I felt like I was just getting steamed up and loving this game. And then all the beautiful art came to an end. And yes, it's called the Banner Saga, and it is Volume 1. So I still felt like it was too short, paid like $20 for it, I think, or something. But I didn't feel ripped. I thought about it, and I'm like, no, I might play it again, and if I don't, I still didn't feel like I was ripped off. And I think there's like, it's hard to quantify what value is in terms of gaming, but I think there's an hours played, per cost per hour of game, that the game gets more and more value the longer that you play it. Except, a lot of these AAA games bloat that content, assuming their fans will want to do it. But honestly, some of that stuff, like achievements or things tied to achievements, is total garbage. So I think it's like a very personal assessment in a way, but like. A game that does cost that much, that even though it has like think about the great graphics in The Force Awakens, you're still not going to spend more than $40 tops on that Blu-ray release or something. It'll probably be cheaper than that. So you get a cinematic experience that's longer, although arguably it's hand animated in a way, and it's not as expensive as making a feature film. Maybe close, but I'm pretty sure Star Wars costs a lot more. And yet they're charging $80 for a 10-hour game. Your value per dollar, if you loved it, you might not be miffed. Because when you love something, you will spend, like that guy who spent $10,000 in Star Citizen, you'll spend that amount and not care. But as a casual gamer picking up games to have reasonable experiences with it, it can really blow. I think there is a line that you cross where it's like there's either not enough content, even though it's great stuff, it's too expensive, and the make work content, get this achievement and do this, or I don't know, just these dumb like repeat really boring parts, or play it on super insane mode, like not really content that speaks to a wider audience. So that's sort of how I look at it. It's hard to just peg one answer, right?
When you were talking, I was thinking about how time and money are of different value to different people. So you're talking about like how it really frustrated you that this campaign was 8 hours. And I was thinking about it. How long would it take me to play an 8-hour campaign? I'm like, it would take me, the most I could sit down and play a game right now would be 2 hours. The most. So that means I can play, if I got the most time to play, then I would finish it in 4 sittings, right? Which is probably what the order is going to come to for me. Yeah. So at which point, like, if I had a really satisfied experience, and I think of my friend Breck, who's a lawyer and trying to balance time, and like he asked me for a game to buy one point, and I'm like, I gave him some suggestions, but he ended up buying Skyrim, and I was like, why would you buy that? And then he played like he got to like the beginning village and then didn't play for a month. And then came back and then got a little further and then didn't play for a month because he has no time. So the value that the game he should be looking for is something that delivers the maximum value to him in the limited amount of time that he has with it. Meanwhile, there's people that have no money, tons of time. Those people, like especially me, like I think of me as a kid, like I wanted games that would last as long as possible because I knew that I only got maybe two games a year. Whereas now, like I'm sitting on Bloodborne, Fallout 4. I'm halfway through or whatever Metal Gear Solid, and why did I pick up the order? instead of picking up Bloodborne or picking up Fallout is because I knew that it was of limited time and that I could enjoy it and have this experience. It was a break from Metal Gear. There was a break from anything else I'm playing, and it fit in my schedule. But when that game comes out, instead of appreciating it for what it is, being like, this game is like, this is a short game with insane production values and insane graphics. So like, you know, just know that it gets docked or given a reputation by the hardcore gaming community that has way too much time on their hands and doesn't know how to appreciate like a chunk of quality because they just want a giant amount of content, you know. So yeah. That's my concern. The people who are loudest on this are the people that have a lot of time on their hands, whereas the people who are really, really busy and have this great game that can like fit a Friday night or a Saturday night, I mean, they don't get heard because they've moved on to the next thing, even though this would fit their life cycle perfectly. You never see that in a review. This would be a great Saturday night rental, or this would be an amazing, you know, like this. You will have a really good weekend with this game if you get it. You know, it's like, no, this game sucks because it's short.
That is a good point, actually. Is that I don't think that some of the reviews speak to the needs of its different audiences. Like everybody assumes you're a no-life gamer, you know, with all this kind of time on your hand, and ranks it in that way. We're like, I guess if you work in the gaming industry doing reviews, you kind of are a no-life game. I mean, you spend your time writing about games or playing them, but like, you know, Joe Sixpack, who works 9 to 5 and does some family shit and has to work on the house and wants to play a game on a Saturday night or Saturday afternoon for 3 hours, like, he's got to find someone that speaks to him to make an informed choice about exactly what you just said, which is actually, I think I saw Breck, not to out Breck too much, although he probably not listening. He was playing Wolfenstein: The Last Order, which would
probably be a good choice for him.
First Blood, whatever that new awesome one is. I think we probably talked about it. The New Order, great game, shortish campaign, but not too short. Definitely, I wasn't disappointed with my purchase. It was a really good gaming experience, so I was like, really happy for him that he's playing that because it's really good.
and it probably fits. It probably fits his lifestyle a bit more. I do agree partly with that. Like, nerdy reviewers are gonna look for, you know, content, but there are all sorts of stats that say that people don't finish video games. And like, now you could even on PlayStation, you can look at the trophies and see what trophies you get for completing the game and what percentage of the people playing this game have acquired that trophy. And when you look at a game like The Witcher 3, it's ridiculously low. It made me so mad just seeing how few people actually finished who played the game, installed it, and everything, finished the prologue. You know, because the prologue of The Witcher 3 is probably close to the length of the entire order, you know? It's a fairly lengthy prologue for a fairly lengthy game, but at the same point, it's like nobody's finishing games, and so you make a game that is completely finishable. And like, if you're breaking it down dollar to dollar, like you just gave the Star Wars Blu-ray example, let's say the order is 8 hours, right? Let's just say it's an 8-hour campaign. You know, an 8-hour, like, if you're not going to find an 8-hour movie. So you're buying, like, maybe it's the equivalent to a first season of one of those elite shows that's only like 8 episodes or some shit. Yeah. So how much do they cost, right? Like, I just feel like even if you bought it at $70 or whatever, and you knew what you were buying, you had tons of money, and you're like, I am buying this game that I know will be a graphical showpiece for my system, will be really entertaining to play through once, maybe twice if I played it on normal. I think that those people would get a really good showing out of it, but instead, like, and it's not just the order, like, the order's what brought it to my mind, but there's a lot. I remember, I think, was it Max Payne 3? There was some other game, and that game was long too, the single player, but people were like harping on, oh, it's so short, or blah 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 blah.
Well,
because
you could probably stomp through that on easy mode, like, it's not that long.
You could stomp through it on easy, and that's true. Like, you could definitely make these games seem short, but also, like, those games are. I saw a review for The Order that said it was like a PS2 game in the Xbox or the PS4 era, and like that was meant to be an insult. But really, it's funny because like that a type of game doesn't need to disappear. And the Gears of War action adventures, like where you don't have an open world, where you go through like set levels with crazy set pieces and all that sort of stuff, and you're shooting dumb dudes and there are characters and it's heavily scripted and it's selling you on a story. There's always going to be room for that. And yeah, The Order could probably be better as a game too. Like I'm not saying that all the criticisms are unjust. I'm just saying like the reputation it's left with is unfairly manufactured by a gaming community that values quantity for the sake of quantity, and that's what they value. It's like, oh, there's so many missions. Like in Metal Gear Solid, you can go on all these little side missions that mean fucking nothing. It's like get another soldier, capture another guy. You're returning to the same areas. They've managed to generate content within content, and it's like. And it loses players. Like, okay, I think that they should be looking at different price points for certain games. Like games like The Witcher, which is new original scripted content, and just a ton of it should be $100. It shouldn't be $60. You know, like. Anyway, they if they find money to make it that way, but comparing The Witcher 3 to The Order, yes, one is tremendously better value than the other. But, like, I mean, it doesn't mean the other one shouldn't exist.
Yeah, well, you know, I think also what's pressuring the linear games that we've mentioned, like these campaign-style games, is the onslaught of free-to-play games that are out there that are not linear, that are just like Rocket League, which is not free-to-play, but basically free. It's kind of free-to-play. Like, there's no end to Rocket League, and that can take up all your gaming time. Like, you don't need...
It can.
You don't need, like, I play Heroes, that's free to play. Hearthstone is free to play. Think of any MOBA, it's free to play. Think about all these MMO, WildStar free to play. Like, there are all these options for you to actually play games that, like, have no ending, that, like, also sink your time, that take consumers out of that market. And so, like, if you look at it strictly from a, like you said, time is the resource for a lot of gamers, not the money part, then, like, I think people... Like, we even do a show about gaming, and, like, in an ideal world on this show, I like to try all the games and report on all the games. As we do the show, realistically, I'm not going to play games just to talk about it on the show. I'm going to pursue the things I'm interested in. And sometimes you become a fan of a genre or a fan of certain gaming IPs or gaming styles, and you tend to stick to those. I mean, in my age now, that's like what I tend to do. We talked about The Witness. Oh, it's a great new gaming experience. Everyone's raving about it. You should try it. I'm like, yeah, it's puzzles. You know, I'm like, maybe. But, like, I bought Antechamber, and I think I own the Stanley Parable. Didn't even launch them. Downloaded them, then, like, well, make room for other games, and deleted them. I'd still like to play those freaking games. So, like, I've become a very self-policing consumer in that I've got to not only manage which games I play, which is kind of a different conversation, but also what is appealing, actually, in the case of The Order, like 1886, that's right here, it actually sounds appealing, not because of a money issue or because of like, I just on principle don't like that it's short, but it's actually like, oh, this will be a sweet diversion that won't last long. Like, I have my games, I played Diablo for a few days, I have my diversion, I'm done. Except that game can go on forever, but
and also play it for a few days. Your an analogy of Call of Duty 2, I know how you'd react to The Order. If you hadn't been properly prepared, you'd have played through it and be like, I can't believe this is done. I was just getting into it. Man, this game is too short. I know that would have been your gut.
Especially games that are good. That's the issue, is like when the game is actually good. The mechanics are fun. Everything's rewarding. In the case of Bonner Saga, like, and that's all I get. Like, I want to do more. Give me more. So hopefully the second volume, which is coming out soon, has more content than the first.
But see, yeah, and I think that, like, if you were talking about free to play, let's say the order was just, no, it cost a ton to make, but let's say they released it for free. And price is always taken into account when talking about these things. I guarantee you that game would have gotten at least 8 across the board. Nobody would have been like, it's too expensive or it's too short. It's too short, but it's free. It's not actually that short. It's just that it's too short for $70 is what people are saying. Yeah. And that's why I find like price is intrinsically connected with this and the idea of getting value. And people are talking about it more, but I think as gamers get older and have more full lives and have like balancing issues and priorities, I think the way that games are reviewed are going to have to change, because like games like The Order now are extremely interesting to me. When I know I'll be able to play this game this weekend when I have some free time and get through it, that's a selling point for me. And maybe I don't want to pick it up full price. Maybe I want to pick it up less, but I'm going to pick it up at one point because I'm past the point of renting games, which is what I did. And if there was a store, maybe I would have rented The Order, but I got it for like $10. And at one point, like if there are more games like that are releasing and can make money with the hardcores that are spending $70-$80 when they come out, then a bunch people halfway through the year at $60, and then maybe people at the year at $10-$20. Like, I can wait, but I want those games to exist. So I don't want every game to be 100 hours. I don't even want every game to be 12 hours. The Last of Us is a 12-hour campaign, single-player campaign, and it needed that campaign. It made sense. It wasn't full. It wasn't like fluff. But Max Payne 3, it was a fluff. At one point, it was just like they needed to have more levels of you killing more dudes, and it just made no sense, So I think we've beaten this one pretty good, and I think that we're running long, so we should probably move to the next segment of this show, which is actually where we cut through the chaff and we find the gold. It's inventory management. We answer the question, spend your cash or vendor trash. Woo!
Inventory management is a challenging and inexact science.
All right, I'm going to go up first since you had a lot of crofting.
We did have a lot of crofting.
To make a good show, you got to have a bit of bow and a bit of crofting, like a bow and crofting eclair. So
you're the creamy filling.
So my recommendation this week is Metro 2033. I may have recommended this before, disclaimer. So for the truly astute, you can call me out on it. Please write to us, exmpodcast@gmail.com. But I don't think I did. And certainly, this is a great game worthy of a second recommendation. Was released a little while ago, made by a Russian developer based on a Russian science fiction novel. This game pays a lot of homage to the source material. At the same time, it is a very depressing, dark, I guess alternate history, sort of science fiction world. 2033 is the future, but it really feels like it really captures that sense of mood and place. A bunch of Russians in Russia stuck in the subways because there's too much radiation out in the surface, so they become all cave dwellers, and life is crappy. And guess what? There are mutants, and so you spend your time shooting mutants, but not only mutants, but things like there's new Nazis. I don't think they're called neo-Nazis, but the Third Reich is a thing here, as well as I think a new form of communist too, and just sort of neutral parties that are trying to survive and make it in the world. You get kind of caught up in the political tension of the thing. At the same time, there's like you do end up being part of an elite squadron. I can't remember what they're called, but who are more interested in finding a solution and protecting from the mutant threat than these human quabbles over politics. All in all, an amazing, amazing game. I mean, I'd be surprised if you didn't own it and you listen to the show and you're into the kind of games we're into. But this game is super good. So Metro 2033, check it out on Steam or Trailer. It's not expensive to get. They actually released a Redux version, which has improved the graphics engine of it. So I recommend you get the Redux version because it's
sexy graphics.
It's sexy graphics. Why wouldn't this game? Speaking of games, like this game was a benchmark game for graphics cards for a really long time. This is, even this updated version is just amazing, and it has all that first-person stealth action that you might like if you like games like Metal Gear Solid and Dishonored and things like that. So, go get it. Get it today.
I would say that while it's got a longer campaign than a lot of games too, it still fits into that like the Wolf, especially compared to Wolfenstein, like the idea of like it's you're playing it not for the online, you're playing to have a solo campaign experience, soaked in atmosphere and all that sort of thing, and you can get through it like, you know, and it about the time you'd get through BioShock or something like that, you know, like probably 12 hours or something.
I can actually give you the stats on this one because
you probably played it multiple times.
No, I don't think so, actually. Well, I did actually start a second run through that I didn't finish, so it would be inaccurate. Oops.
My recommendation for this week is a game of similar time period in terms of creation. It's called L.A. Noire. A lot of you probably heard of it. It was a Rockstar game, but made by Team Bondi. Not without controversy. The lead developer, the creator, was blamed for like overworking employees and like just being a tyrant to work with and this sort of thing. That said, the end product, judged as a sort of its own thing, I still think is a flawed masterpiece. It's a type of game that exists in an open world, although probably didn't need to be in an open world. But that open world provides flavor. You're solving cases as a detective. So if you like stuff like what do you call those shows? Law and Order. It's similar. You and your partner show up. You investigate a scene, and you learn more about it. You move to different desks. So there's like narcotics and all this. It's set in the 1940s, LA. So it's really like that LA Confidential LA feel. So very bright and sunny, but dark at the same time. So very, very good. The story kind of loses track a little bit at the end, but it is a traditional noir story. None of the characters are too likable per se, and that can rub certain people the right way or wrong way if they're looking for like a white knight type hero. And finally, I'd say about L.A. Noire that it's it's a lengthy game, but it's one that that there's certain elements of the gameplay, like the shooting, that are fun when they show up, but not like you can play the game for a long time and not fire a single bullet because you're interviewing perps, investigating crime scenes, and this sort of thing. The last element is the graphics still hold up very nice today, and one of the things that was noteworthy about them at the time was they did this face motion capture thing, which is crazy. When you see it, like you'll be like, I've never seen a game like this before. I thought games were going to start using this in a much more common way afterwards, because it's hard to explain, but it looks like the face of the characters are the face of the actors, and they're moving in a similar like 3D space.
Right.
But it's in a way it's like the most realistic facial graphics or facial animation that I've ever seen. And in another way, there's something slightly off-putting about it, but it allows you, there's certain scenes where you're interviewing people and you have to guess if they're lying, and part of it you get to see their facial reactions, which is not something that you'd seen before in video games. I'm surprised that no game has stolen that technology and used it in other ways since. Maybe it's proprietary. I don't know.
No, that they actually did a really great, like the Uncanny Valley thing is not experienced here. Like stylistically, they did it in a way that was the only Rockstar game in history for me that I've been as stoked for as seeing the spots for that game because of the facial tech and all the great performances by actors in this like film/game. L.A. Noire is incredible, man, and it's like dirt cheap. Like you can get it all the time for dirt. So if you missed it, like
if anything, you're better off having missed it and catching up now, because they did this thing where they released a bunch of bonus cases, and if you bought it on PlayStation or you pre-ordered here or you pre-ordered there, you got a different case or a different case, and only now can you get like the game of the year type editions that include everything. And even I haven't, like, I've only played it through the one time, but I actually own it in two different places. I bought it on Steam. I also own it. I played it the first time on PlayStation 3. I would totally recommend a playthrough of LA Noire, but it's a time-consuming one, and there are flaws that you'll have to look past. Anyway, my recommendation: LA Noire, Bose, Metro 2033. You can't go wrong there. Two good games. Speaking of things you can't go wrong with, you can't go wrong with more EXM. EXMpodcast.com is our website. You can find all our episodes there. We'd ask that you follow us on Twitter at EXM Podcast, and know when we're live streaming, like we are now, on twitch.tv/EXM Podcasts, generally on Monday nights. You can also email us at exmpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your comments, ideas for conversation topics. The Dialgoue Tree, in particular, always needs new leaves. Send them to at exmpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/exmpodcast. Throw your likes at us. We would love them. And finally, we have a sister show. It's called Good, Bad, or Bullshit, where Bo, Mike, and I pick up a random topic. We discuss the hell out of it. It's good, bad, or bullshit. And you can find all the episodes of that show at goodbadbull.com. And finally, all this promotional stuff is leading to the main two products of this show, and I'm talking about Bo and I. We are individuals of an individual nature. Bo, if people want to find you on the internet, what would they do?
They can find me on Twitter at Bo Schwartz, where you can see what I am up to. So, podcasting thing, great JPEGs that I like to send out sometimes. You know it. There's one up there right now. Go to Bo Schwartz and look for a JPEG featuring Mr. Han Solo.
And you can follow me at Crofton Steers. No fancy names here, fancy Twitter handles, just our
no
real
fancy
names.
JPEGs.
No fancy JPEGs. And now, with all that housekeeping out of the way, we will move into the final segment of the show, the Mastergame Theatre Quote of the Week.
It's now time for Mastergame Theatre.
It's Crofton saw the JPEG. It's so good.
It's true. I did see it. It was quite funny, but you will never be able to pry out of me what it's about. You'll have to go to Bo's Twitter to see it yourself. So our Mastergame Theatre Quote of the Week, because I talk so much here at the end, Bo is going to do it. He's going to play the role of the scourge of my childhood. I'm talking about the Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, in particular from a video game, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time.
What does Shredder even sound like? Oh, it's been a while.
He sounds like an evil man, Bo.
He's Japanese, right?
I mean, you can have like a face thing there. He has always got a face or a guard.
Does this work a little better? Is this
all right? And this was live. There was a live voice actor who did this originally.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're gonna do it. All right. So thanks for tuning in and enjoy the performance.
Thank you, everybody.
My patience is wearing a thin. I banish you to a time warp from which you will never return to.
Did I nail it?
So racist.
He's Japanese. I want you to let him into me. Oh shit.
That's awesome.
All right. My patience is wearing thinner. I banish you to a time warp. Time warp. All right.